NASDAQ on pace to snap a 7-month winning streak as tech drags. Joining me now, markets and data editor Jared Blikre, as well as Michele Schneider, MarketGauge.com chief strategist. Jared, I want to start with you. Give us a look at the month here because we saw a lot of damage within tech, and that looks like it's going to drag the NASDAQ lower on the month.
You bet. And let's start with the Wi-Fi Interactive. And I'm going to pull up the month to date. And this is going to be as of the close Wednesday. You can see XLV in the upper left. Healthcare has been the come from behind story of the fourth quarter, also leading in this fourth quarter. Then we have materials, staples, real estate, energy, financials, utilities, all those in the green, but really healthcare by and away the biggest sector that has gained. And then tech, look at that. Tech is down 5.6%. Then you got consumer discretionary, which houses Amazon and Tesla, and then industrials. What stands out to me is this is a bull market, and within a bull market you see rotation. That is its lifeblood. But what really caught my attention as of Wednesday was the 4-day rally where we just saw, we're looking at large cap sectors right now, and you can see some pretty nice gains across the board, everything in the green, led by consumer discretionary, materials and healthcare and tech. But it was the small caps, and I'm going to show you the Russell 2000 here. And let's go here to the Russell 2000. Here's the year to date, just roaring back. And by the way, these over here in September, October, those are record highs. So it is now challenging those highs. Not the first time we've been here. Here's a 5-year chart. We've been here before in 2021, 2024. And is this going to be the breakout moment? And it's not just small caps. It's also micro caps. And just a lot of kind of fringy speculative markets saw a lot of buying over the last 4 days. So going to be interesting to see if this continues into December.
Yeah, it will. And Mish, I want to pick it up there because I know you're watching small caps quite closely here. What are you watching for? What levels are you watching for? And then kind of what happens with small caps depending on that?
Well, first of all, good morning. And yes, obviously, small caps are always on my mind. I call it Grandpa Russell because essentially that's really going to give us the best barometer on what the health of the U.S. economy is. And with that now challenging new all-time highs and with the velocity and momentum we saw coming into today, very optimistic. And I think the main reason, of course, is that it sniffs lower interest rates to start, and that will really help not just small caps, but some of the areas that really are impacted by that, which of course would be the consumer. So we saw a big comeback there, the transportation, in particular, those three. So just as Jared, you said before, rotation, this is a good sign, and you have to be optimistic at this point.
Mish, I want to follow up on gold, and I'm going to put a chart here on the Wi-Fi Interactive. Maybe we can show it here in a second. But gold is up 24% over the last 3 months. What stands out to me is we had this consolidation period. Looks like it's breaking out of this sideways trending pennant there. And I'm wondering if you have any upside targets in gold and what they might jive with in terms of the fundamentals. Gold kind of rallying on interest rate expectations and what the Fed is doing and maybe even a weaker dollar.
Well, yeah, those are definitely two factors, and I'll work down and then come to a target. We also have a tremendous deficit, as high as it's been since the pandemic, maybe even a little higher as of October. We also have a tremendous amount of government spending. And then on top of that, we have a tremendous amount of central bank buying still in gold. And so it's interesting because as you're seeing the optimism in the overall market, and particularly in the rotation, gold continues to soar. And then we have statements coming out like the end of income tax, Trump coming out this morning and saying we're going to keep the stock market high. It's great for 401ks. All of this is very inflationary, and that's what gold is really responding to. I think 4,700 would be a good next target.
And I'm also curious about retailers, because I know you're watching the XRT, which tracks those retailers, includes those retailers. We've been getting a lot of numbers, obviously, already through this holiday season. We've been getting earnings from many of these companies. So how are you thinking about that group? I mean, the estimates for overall spending this holiday season, they are expected to see an increase.
Yeah, which is a change because if you looked at the statistics about a month ago, they were expecting it to be just about average. So whatever's happened over the last couple of weeks, and I think this happens every year, people start to experience sort of a you only live once, that YOLO attitude, and it's the holidays, and let's go out and spend, and everything's going to be great. And that's what XRT is reflecting. And some of those were really shocking in terms of the earnings, like Kohl's, for example, at Target, and Macy's made 52-week highs on Wednesday. So this is a great sign. If we just look at XRT, as you have up there on the chart, that if for the Russells or grandpa, this is my grandma, and that's because we want the consumer to go out there and spend. At this point, if we just look at it from a technical standpoint, if Friday's low holds, excuse me, not Friday, today's Friday, Wednesday's low holds, then what we have is a good situation back to a bullish phase. But we have to remember one thing, Julie, and that is XRT made a new all-time high in 2021, and we are still very far from that. So it's a weak link, not an anchor, thank goodness, and maybe catches up. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I guess we're all feeling our turkey here today, Michele. I don't know what day it is either. Let's talk about transports, because this is an area for technicians like yourself, like Jared, that you watch very, very closely to see if it's confirming or not confirming what's going on in the broader market. So what are you seeing there?
Well, again, there was a nice turnaround. It was looking a bit dicey. Well, just as we got to this point, IYT was actually holding up pretty well and looked like it was going to continue to go up for a bit. And Uber had a lot to do with that. But now we saw when the market came down and we had that correction, IYT broke down under the 50-day moving average and started to look a little dicey. However, again, on Wednesday, it recovered back over that 50-day moving average. So just like what we just said about XRT, IYT also, we want to see those Wednesday lows hold. It actually looks like it has potential to follow IWM or the Russells. If that makes a new all-time high, I think transports goes along with it. And yeah, as looking across the board there, obviously UPS is having some issues, but I think most of this is coming from really, I think the more local transportation, like I said, the Ubers, the Lyft, and it's clearly, it says right there what's going on. Airlines too. We'll see if that comes back. That's predicted to have a very strong 2026.
Mish, I'm wondering if you could talk to us about tech, and specifically, I got semiconductors up here. Here's year to date. We've seen a lot here, or maybe software. These are a lot of the bigger names. What do you see in this? And don't be shy to mention some smaller ones as well that might be coming into the fore.
Well, we when everything was going to new all-time highs, and after that NVIDIA earnings and then the disappointment when it completely reversed that day, really basically what it says is that it's probably a bit saturated. I mean, I was not one of the AI bubble people. I just thought rotation, number one, a bit oversaturated, number two. And number three is there's some real things to keep an eye on when we're talking about the tech space. And that's really where we can talk about commodities, but energy is a really big factor there. And it seemed like in terms of the demand of all of these hyperscalers and what they're going to do in terms of energy supply, they may overuse it at this point. And there's really not enough going forward, as we see in the projections. So that could be a little bit of a soft tone for that. However, we cannot deny that these big companies, these hyperscalers like Google in particular, have a really big future, and any corrections you get in that at this point with the rest of the market holding look like buy opportunities. Chasing strength, you just have to wonder about your risk.
Yes, definitely. Speaking about wondering about your risk, I know you're watching IBB, the Biotech ETF, which tends to be one for people who maybe are out there on the risk spectrum a little bit more. But we were talking earlier, healthcare broadly is the best performer this month. It's been a sort of come from behind. It's kind of middle of the pack this year, but this month it's been far and away the best performer. And I'm just looking at the IBB, which year to date has done very well. Is this a place that people should be looking? And I guess, again, it sort of depends on your risk tolerance.
Yes, and by the way, if you look at Stanley Druckenmiller's portfolio right now, his top three holdings are all in the biotech space. So clearly there's a future here, and a lot of it has to do with AI as well, and also an emerging trend in terms of healthcare in general. As health insurance gets more expensive, and we still don't really know the fate of the Affordable Care with Trump's policies. What's happening, I think, is people are not only switching more towards online type of healthcare, like with Teladoc, Amazon has a service, but some of these companies that are using AI are having tremendous gains. So like, for example, we bought this little stock called Replimune, REPL, at $4. It's trading at 10 right now. Why? Because they came up with an FDA approval. And that's the rub. So if you look at some of these stocks, I do like Teladoc. I do like also just in the space in general, if you just wanted to look at IBB, look at that beautiful chart that you're showing there. This is a come from behind. It's cyclical and non-cyclical, and that's what we're starting to see here. And when the economy's doing well, though, it will help this space. Tempest is another one, by the way, AI-generated stock, another darling, and one of the holdings in Druckenmiller's portfolio, and ours.
Let's talk about crypto here before we go, because we have seen a huge downdraft, not only in Bitcoin kind of leading the way, but also some of the other tokens which are down multiples sometimes of Bitcoin. And it was really Bitcoin that kind of led the way down before stocks. I think the top in Bitcoin was sometime around, here's a 5-year, let's go to a year to date, sometime in October. I'm wondering where you think we might bottom out, or if you're looking at other tokens or coins right now.
Well, I actually think that 80,000 might have been the floor in Bitcoin. Certainly, we saw a lot of money coming back into it, and here we are now over 92,000. We have to see what happens at 100. That's going to be obviously not only a psychological resistance level, but a technical resistance level. And if you're looking at the moving averages, interestingly enough, Bitcoin is actually in a bearish phase. It had a death cross on those moving averages. So I do think that 2026 looks really good for Bitcoin. So right now, I'm saying forget about 80. Right at this point now, we want to see it hold around 88, 89. We get through 100. I would think that's a good sign. In terms of the others, we're really, well, obviously Ethereum has to hold 3,000, but looking at a Chainlink is one of my favorites. It broke down under 14. It went under 12. That was like a gift. Now it's back over 13, gets through 14. Good. And also, we really like Ripple is another one, XRP. Again, that is still, trading very cheaply, but nonetheless, I think that too can get going here, especially if we can get back over, let's say, 250. And Solana is another one. It held 130 really well. Let's see what happens over 150.
Did I hear you say Chainlink? Okay, I wanted to make sure I heard you right, Mish. Some of these cryptos I'm not as familiar with as others.